Hey, what is up? Welcome back. And in this video, we're going to discuss this question I got on the Discord Community Design Squad. Hello, I just saw a video of you explaining why not to jump to conclusions or solutions. I understand that pretty well. I've been an engineer for 6 years now, working on solutions, and since my brain is trained that way, it is hard to deviate from this process. My question now is, how do I start to think like a designer? Every time I take up a project, I start to see my solution clearly and its working solution as well. However, because of a mentality, I feel like there is a bias in my projects. Please help me, fellow designers. So what I'm gonna share with you today is really the strategies to think different and think in growth. Because everyone, absolutely everyone starts in UX with the same reactive mindset. Doesn't matter what background you are from. You could be mathematician, you could be engineer, you could be social scientist, you could be someone who works with your hands in a service industry. It doesn't really matter. Everyone comes super reactive. They're coming at that entry junior level because they don't know about all the methods, about thinking patterns, about the need to diverge and converge at different motions and different situations. But not every tool is appropriate to different problems and so forth, but you learn it over time. So it's all about growth. And in fact, the people who I mentored and coached and sometimes managed or worked alongside in different firms all went through the same journey. Let's say if I would work with a junior, they would have the same reaction mindset to kind of jump in the end, or sometimes even maybe overcompensate and be too hesitant in a way because they know of their shortcomings, just like the author of the comment on the Design Squad community. And funnily enough, some people choose to go for UX, other people choose to be, let's say, stakeholders and be reactive. So you're thinking in a way, you are basically a stakeholder, a UX designer in the making. Your thinking is exactly the same. Sometimes you're going to receive a business owner brief, which states just, oh, make me an app. Where are they coming from? They're coming exactly where you would come from if the only thing you know about is app or app design. If that's the only thing you know, that's exactly what your premise is gonna be like. But luckily for you, you can overcome it as long as you focus on that long-term journey. And for that, you need a few things. Well, growth means time. That's first and foremost, which you need to keep in mind. Let's say anyone who's going to start, they're going to start as entry level, as a junior, as a midweight, as a senior, let's say. And at the senior level, maybe after a few years, a decade sometimes, you're going to feel like you're confident enough where you know where you can zoom in and where you can zoom out and at what places you need to do so. Your decisions might not be as, I guess, different in a way or from the outlook, from the outside if you look at junior or senior, but just they are more calibrated to be successful or result in better outcomes for the user and the business. That's ultimately the difference. And how you arrive at that is obviously developing and taking time to develop. So you need to be patient with yourself ultimately. As long as you know this, then you can reflect exactly and be fair on yourself and not kind of push yourself too soon to behave like a senior when you still have years to develop ultimately. And you should take those years. Of course, emulating the seniors around it and not just other designers, because again, every other designer around you is going to be in the same shoes where they are very reactive. And let's say they learn a Google course or a bootcamp how to design a specific app, like a mobile app for everything. And that's usually the premise right now, which is very shameful. You know, there's no other considerations in terms of the holistic service design or systems thinking or arriving at services which might not even have digital touchpoints, which is fine. That's exactly what real world needs alongside the digital means. So you kind of, you know, if you talk to the peers, you might get a lot of the same struggle basically, but not so many solutions. So what we hinted in so many different videos so far is the need for seniors and juniors to pair up, to be shadowing basically someone who knows, who's been there, who can give you a pointer and say, hey, do you really think we should jump for it immediately? Do we need to do a bit more research maybe, or reflect at what point? So pairing up with seniors is very, very important. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, someone you're going to reach out on LinkedIn, someone you're going to get to answer a video, let's say, like I'm making it right now to give you a bit of a, you know, nudge or insight, or maybe you're going to pair up with someone on a Discord, let's say on the Design Squad community, which is one of the biggest UX communities right now on Discord, where you can immediately see who's ahead of, who's a lead, who's a senior. You can ping them directly, and I'm sure that they're going to happily answer as long as you're specific. But ultimately, it's up to you. The call to action is not just to rely on a tool or community, but just actually make it happen. Go for it. The next point is that you need to have a mindset to fight premature convergence, because all of this jumping into solutions too soon is really just that, premature convergence. If you take something like Double Diamond, check my video on that. I explain where do you converge, where do you diverge, what does that mean really? But ultimately, divergence means that you're going to explore a lot of different options and uncover signals which you might not think about immediately. That's where you use teamwork and collaborate and facilitate things like through a workshop, so you can get more signals and your solutions therefore are going to be much better. Now, granted, you are alone now and probably working on conceptual case studies, and will do so for a while, right? Until you land a job in a team. And perhaps even if you're going to land in a team where you're a lone designer, there's still going to persist some of that. So you need to fight premature convergence with exploring more by default. That's ultimately the mindset shift. Again, maybe it's taking a bit more time, maybe it's emulating, you know, seniors I mentioned before, but ultimately force the exploration before you converge on something and laser focus on that solution. It's like one of the things which is maybe even another tactic or thinking item here is really ask why on everything you are making as a presumption ultimately. Because again, you learned something, it's your bread and butter. You maybe got through a course how to product design an app, but not so much how to research, how to actually apply it in the real world scenarios. And therefore everything now seems like it could be solved with a new app. It won't. It's just not the reality. The apps are great, but they need to solve the right challenges. And that's where you need to reflect and ask yourself and break down those hypotheses. Because if you think, oh, maybe I'm gonna help someone out who has mental health issues and they need another app, this is a hypothesis that that app is actually gonna help them. And it's a very rough hypothesis. You know, ask why are you making that? Why the app exactly? Is it because you know how to design apps and nothing else? Well, maybe then worth to actually learn and explore how to design voice interfaces, AI, enterprise tools, different dashboards, maybe actual solution. And likely it is that all that mental health improvement service is going to have an app. It's going to have underlying interfaces. It's going to have some sort of flow, a lot of touch points ultimately. And that's what you need to reflect on, because that's exactly what's going to make the experience, not just something to, you know, interact and forget. It has to slot in the user's lives and also business lives. There's a lot of parties involved. And premature convergence is something we touched with Kevin Richard in the second episode of Experience Design Podcast. So listen to that, because we cover a lot of that. And I try to exactly dedicate a lot of that episode to cover this, because a lot of juniors and even seniors are guilty of premature converging because they apply what they know and nothing else. They don't know what they don't know, but you need to force yourself to know just a bit more and see what else can I find out by default. And, you know, it doesn't mean to do extensive research, but really ask why, until you get to the first principles and you understand exactly where it's coming from. Is it because you know very little and that's why you default to it? Or is it actually that this is the most simple basic solution which you can apply today and learn from it and maybe expand in the future? Maybe that, but you need to reflect. Really explore the tools in a safe to fail scenarios. So let's say if you're not working at any job right now and there is not big risk on a line, you should be applying every framework or method you find just to see what value does it deliver and to what extent and where is it appropriate to apply. So for example, research prioritization tool, which I covered in a previous video, is a good place to start, especially evaluating of how much research is enough. Borrowing from Jeanette Fusela, how lean do you actually go? Given the challenge, you've probably seen a version of it somewhere. It's all going to come down to axes of how clear it is, like the problem you're solving or the user needs you're trying to answer, the features you want to give it to them. And the risk, of course, reflects here getting it right or getting it wrong. And of course, what you want to do is, of course, minimize the risk and lower the uncertainty, which is part of the research and design practice anyway. Probably seen the matrix of user research methods, right? You should really apply all of them or read up on all of them before you start user researching. Same for, let's say, designing methods, same or frameworks for facilitation and design thinking, because there is quite a few ways to do that. Go and explore them and try to apply in almost every project if it's failed to save, meaning self-directed work, conceptual work, to see if it's the right thing. If it's not the right thing, totally dismiss it, learn from it, and then your toolkit is going to expand. So next time you're going to make better decisions. How, let's say, if you would shadow a senior today, you're going to recognize that they don't research everything. Out of 100 different frameworks and methods, they might use 3 for a project and be happy with that, because the problem is that small or is that big, let's say. So they're gonna vary, but shadowing them again is a good benefit to have. So I hope this gives you a lot to think about and reflect, because really there is no shortcuts to not think like an engineer, let's say. You can use the design thinking as a method. It kind of roughly gives you things to do, like discover, but it doesn't tell you exactly how to do that. Therefore, you're going to need to, again, seek more learning and apply it and see exactly what sticks, what doesn't stick, especially now, since you're not in an environment where you could fail, let's say, because ultimately you're not failing at all until you're actually out there within a business scenario, because that's where it counts the most. And on that note, and as per usual, give a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below what you think about it, and I'll see you next time.